The flight attendant's voice cut through the cabin, sharp and commanding. "This is the last time I'm asking. Move to the back of the plane, or I'll have security remove you." Her tone dripped with arrogance, meant to humiliate. Naomi, a black woman in her late 30s, lifted her eyes toward her, calm, unshaken, and with quiet strength, she replied evenly, "I already told you. I'm not moving." Her tone was gentle but firm, and she packed more punch than the flight attendant's warnings. Nobody knew what to expect next. The woman they had thought was helpless was ready to show them all otherwise. If you feel that every human being should be treated with dignity, no matter what color, hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments where you are watching from. Outside, the private plane glistened in the afternoon sunlight, its streamlined appearance promising extravagance. Inside, the cabin radiated luxury leather seats that were a delight to touch, gold trimmings, and an air of exclusivity for the privileged few. The travelers made themselves comfortable, some swiping on their devices, others imbibing champagne as soothing melodies wafted through the air. Among them was Naomi Williams, wearing a navy blazer and slacks. She exuded quiet poise. She wasn't attempting to be seen, yet her presence had authority to her. It wasn't another trip. It was a trip to manage her burgeoning business empire, though no one on the ship was aware of it yet. She liked it that way. Standing at the door was Lauren, the senior flight attendant. Her uniform was impeccable, her smile carefully constructed, warm for some, icy for others. She believed in being in charge, although her concept of order tended to change on a whim. "Welcome aboard," Lauren said brusquely as Naomi passed through, her voice colder than that which she had used with the others. Right behind Naomi, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond, a pair of people in their 60s, walked in effortlessly. Mrs. Raymond held her knitting bag in one hand, while her husband clutched a folded newspaper in the other. Lauren's attitude changed immediately. "Good morning, Mr. and Mrs. Raymond, always good to have you here." She used syrupy sweetness, warmed with syrupy sweetness that had been missing moments before. The difference did not go unnoticed by Naomi, although her countenance was serene. Her eyes told a different story, however, that she had seen the unspoken message. As passengers settled, Lauren continued down the aisle, ensuring everyone was comfortable. She checked on the Raymonds again, offering them a radiant smile. But when she glanced back at Naomi, her expression hardened. Her eyes lingered on Naomi's bag, tucked neatly beneath her seat, lips pressing into a thin, disapproving line. Lauren did not even bother with pleasantries this time. She just passed Naomi by without saying anything, her cold unfriendliness out in full view. Have you ever had someone treat you differently, simply because of how you look? Share your experience in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more empowering stories like this. Lauren Reed, in her early 40s, walked with the air of a woman who lived for control. Every aspect of her was groomed. Her impeccable uniform, her immaculately styled hair, her crisp, commanding stance to her. Appearances were everything and worth, and her judgments were quick and unrepentant. As she observed Naomi settle in her seat, irritation began to flash in Lauren's eyes. Something about this woman didn't feel quite right. Perhaps it was the subtle blazer, perhaps the silent confidence, or perhaps the fact that Naomi wasn't trying to get attention like some of the others in first class. To Lauren, Naomi just didn't belong walking over. Lauren pasted on a strained smile. "Excuse me, ma'am," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "I believe you're in the wrong section." Naomi looked up at her, calm as ever. "No," she replied evenly. "This is my seat." Lauren's smile didn't fade, but her tone hardened. "I don't think so. This area is reserved for our elite passengers." Other tourists nearby started to take notice. A socialite leaned forward with interest, while a businessman several seats down scowled faintly, picking up on Lauren's iciness. Naomi's eyes didn't blink. "You may want to recheck your passenger manifest before you assume anything," she said. Lauren's brows shot up, her temper growing shorter. "I don't have to check anything. I know who is supposed to be here, and who is not. The mood in the cabin changed. Some passengers whispered. Others averted their eyes, feigning ignorance. One grumbled. Why can't she just switch if she is in the wrong seat? Another shrugged, most likely trying to get a free upgrade. Lauren crossed her arms and yelled so all could hear. If you don't move to the back of the plane, I'll have to call security. Naomi cocked her head to one side, her face resolute. Call someone, if you have to, she murmured. But I am not budging. The socialite gasped. The businessman shifted forward, his disapproval evident. Angered, Lauren turned to Grace, a junior flight attendant hovering nearby. Grace, she snapped. Take her to the back now. Grace hesitated. She glanced at Naomi, then back at Lauren. Something in her gut told her Naomi was right, that the list should be checked. But Lauren's sharp glare froze her. Reluctantly, she nodded and took a step forward. Naomi shifted slightly in her seat, her voice calm yet firm. You might want to think carefully about what you're doing, she warned. Lauren scoffed, brushing off the words. I know just what I am doing. Now get up. The air in the cabin grew heavier, quietness descending like a thunderstorm waiting to break. Naomi reclined, her eyes unwavering. You shouldn't make judgments about individuals, she said softly. Lauren smirked. And you shouldn't sit in seats that you didn't pay for. Then came the moment that left everyone stunned. Without changing her expression, Naomi calmly picked up her phone, tapped a quick message, and set it back down on the armrest. Her words were quiet but chilling. You're making a mistake. Naomi's words lingered in the air like a quiet storm. I'm not moving. Lauren didn't back down. We'll see about that, she muttered, signaling again for Grace to act. The junior attendant stepped closer, hesitation clear in her every movement. Naomi's calm confidence stood in sharp contrast to Lauren's rising frustration, and the tension inside the cabin only grew thicker. Passengers leaned in, their curiosity turning into disbelief as the scene unfolded. Lauren's voice rose, sharp and commanding. This is your final warning. Move to the back of the plane, or I'll call security. Naomi looked up at her, serene as ever. I already told you. I'm not moving, she said evenly. Her tone was calm, almost soothing, but carried a quiet strength that only fueled Lauren's anger. From the row behind, the intrusive socialite elbowed her friend and leaned in to whisper, loud enough for half the cabin to hear. Sounds like she is attempting to get a free ride. Lauren jumped on the remark immediately, her smirk resurfacing. That is precisely what it appears, she said, crossing her arms as if rallying the other passengers to her cause. We have rules for a purpose, and some individuals simply do not take them seriously. Naomi didn't bite. She sat upright, eyes fixed, her silence more potent than any words of defense. Grace's conscience pulled at her, however. Gradually, she edged toward the clipboard beside the cockpit, where the passenger list was attached. Her hands shook as she started to read down through the names, hoping against hope to find something to make Naomi right. But she got only halfway before Lauren's icily sharp voice sliced into the air. Grace, what are you doing? Grace halted. I was just checking. I told you I've got this under control. Lauren cut in, her voice cutting through the cabin. You don't have to get involved. Red-faced, Grace retreated, biting her lip, caught between doing the right thing and the threat of losing her job. At that moment, a kind-looking businessman across the aisle leaned forward. Dressed in a crisp suit, his demeanor calm and steady, he offered Naomi a small, reassuring smile. Excuse me, he said gently. Is everything all right? Naomi turned her head, her expression softening slightly. I'm fine, thank you, she replied, her voice steady but carrying quiet gratitude for the kindness. Before he could say more, Lauren snapped again, her tone defensive. Sir, I'd rather you didn't fuel the commotion. The businessman's forehead creased. His tone was still smooth, but his words sliced more painfully than rage. Where I am sitting, it appears to me that you are causing a scene. A rush of indignation flushed Lauren's cheeks. She spun back to Naomi, her finger jabbing. "I've had enough. Either you get up, or you'll be removed from this plane." Naomi met her stare without so much as a flicker. "You may attempt it," she murmured. Her composure unnerved Lauren even more. Her voice trembled as she crept closer, muttering under her breath. "Why don't you just get up and say you are in the wrong seat and save us all the trouble?" Naomi did not respond. Her silence was deafening. Last, Lauren stood up, her anger overrunning. Not a word. She turned on her heel and stormed down the aisle, the clicking of her well-shined shoes against the carpet angrily, announcing her departure. Lauren reemerged, carrying a tray of fizzy water. Her stance was professional, but her eyes conveyed the exasperation seething beneath. Naomi sat quietly in her seat, engrossed in the book lying in her hands. Around her, passengers murmured softly, the cabin filled with an atmosphere of serenity. But beneath the serenity, Lauren's undercurrent hostility started to appear. Naomi had waited quietly, observing as Lauren served first Mr. and Mrs. Raymond, then began to progress down the aisle, serving others. However, she specifically passed Naomi by. When the tray was almost empty, Naomi finally spoke in a soft voice. "Excuse me, could I have some water, please?" Lauren halted, looked at her with chilly disdain, and answered curtly, "I'll get to you when I can." She proceeded on without another word. Naomi's serene stare tracked her disappearing form, but she held her peace. Her silence was power enough. If you saw this sort of thing, would you intervene? Or remain silent? Let us know in the comments. The minutes ticked on. Naomi adjusted in her seat, stretching a leg a little into the aisle. No more than an ordinary tweak. Lauren returned with the tray in hand, her sharp eyes immediately locking on Naomi's leg. Instead of simply asking her to move, Lauren changed her path deliberately. In a sudden motion, her foot collided with Naomi's. The tray jolted, glasses tipped, water spilled across Naomi's lap and onto the carpet. Lauren gasped loudly, her voice theatrical and sharp. "Watch where you're putting your legs. Look at the mess you've caused." Heads swiveled. Passengers gazed, shocked by the scene. Naomi looked up surprised but firm. She brushed calmly at the water on her pants. "But you ran into me," she said levelly. Then, her head cocked to one side, her level eyes never leaving his, Naomi added, "I merely ask to be treated with the same decency as everybody else. And if that is too much to expect, then perhaps it is you who do not belong here." Her words hung suspended in the air, silenced, but intense. A reprimand no one saw coming. Lauren's face was red with rage. She moved forward, her voice low and cutting. "You think you can speak to me like that?" Her anger overflowed, and then, with an electrifying flash of surprise that stopped the whole cabin, Lauren threw up her hand and slapped Naomi's face. The slap rang out across the air like thunder. Gasps coursed through the passengers. The businessman jerked halfway up to his feet, shock and anger etched on his face. Junior attendant Grace covered her mouth with shaking hands, her eyes wide with terror. Even the snobbish socialite, who had sneered previously, looked shaken, her face deprived of arrogance. Naomi slowly stood up. She rested her hands serenely in her lap, her face serene, her eyes fixed intently at Lauren. The cabin was quiet, the air thick, crushing. Everyone sensed that something had just changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Naomi leaned back in her chair, slowly straightening. Her face was still calm, but her eyes bore a burden so piercing that for the first time, Lauren hesitated. "You just made the worst mistake of your life," Naomi told her quietly. Her soft voice sliced through the air like a blade. Had you been in Naomi's shoes, how would you have reacted? Let us know in the comments. And if this tale has you on the edge of your seat, give it a like and subscribe now. Naomi's voice was calm, measured, and forceful. I've been understanding with you, but what you've been doing has gone too far. Lauren's jaw clenched, her fists forming at her sides. Her rage was kindled as she replied, her voice commanding. Crossed the line. You are the one who has been disruptive since you got on this plane. Naomi didn't blink. She didn't reach up to touch the place where she'd been slapped. She didn't even speak loudly. Instead, she straightened up further, her eyes locked on Lauren with unwavering calm. You'll regret that, Naomi said softly. The command in her voice seemed to ripple through the cabin. Lauren hesitated for a brief moment, her poise dented by Naomi's unbreakable composure. Then she laughed, the tone dripping with disdain. Regret it? What are you going to do? Call the police. Naomi did not respond. Her silence was louder than words, and all those in her vicinity could sense the power shift. From the cabin corner, Grace, the other attendant, younger, watched with increasing alarm. She'd witnessed Lauren's antics all day, with each passing moment more disturbing than the previous one. Now she realized she could no longer keep silent. Quietly, Grace moved away. Her hand shook a bit as she retrieved her phone. When the connection was made, her voice was soft but authoritative. This is Grace. We have an issue on the flight. She hung up the phone hastily and came back, her face a combination of concern and determination. Lauren, unaware of what Grace was doing, stood with arms crossed. Her fury broiled, but her hold on control was waning. Naomi sat in impeccable calm, a copy of fortitude. Passengers observed acutely, their eyes flitting between the two women, not knowing what would occur next. A woman sitting close leaned towards Naomi, speaking softly in genuine concern. Are you okay? Naomi glanced sideways and gave her a tiny, reassuring smile. I am fine, she replied quietly. The cabin's silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the distant hum of the engines. But they all knew this was only just beginning. Naomi's voice sliced through once more, calm, authoritative. All I had to do was be treated with respect, but you couldn't due to your prejudice. You assumed I don't belong here, and that was your mistake. Lauren's annoyance was heightened. Her grip on the tray tightened as she stooped closer, her voice sarcastic. Respect. Perhaps you should first earn it. People like you don't deserve my respect. A wave of unease spread through the passengers. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others exchanged glances. The unspoken question hung in the air. How far was this going to go? Naomi's calm finally hardened into something sharper. Her voice cut like steel. You shouldn't have said that. Her words carried an unspoken weight, leaving everyone on edge, wondering what would happen next. Lauren scoffed, folding her arms again. Oh, please. I've been more than patient with you. Maybe now you'll understand that actions have consequences. The tension was unbearable. Everyone could feel it. Something big was about to happen. Naomi's eyes narrowed ever so slightly, though her composure remained unbroken. You're right, she said softly, each word deliberate. Actions do have consequences, and you're about to learn just how true that is. For the first time, Lauren faltered. Something in Naomi's tone sent a chill down her spine. She tried to brush it off, forcing a dismissive wave of her hand. I'm not afraid of your empty threats. You'll be the one regretting this, not me. She turned away, feigning confidence. But unease was already creeping in. She had crossed a line, and though she wouldn't admit it aloud, she knew it. The aghast expression on Grace's face, the condemnation in the businessman's stare, the disapproving murmurs from the socialite. None were hers anymore. And then there was Naomi, sitting in a silent strength that made Lauren feel as though the walls were closing in. Her head reeled. What if this woman isn't who I think she is? The way Naomi carried herself, the measured authority in her voice, it didn't match Lauren's assumptions. Why hadn't she yelled? Why hadn't she lashed out? Why had she only said, "You'll regret this"? A knot twisted in Lauren's stomach. For the first time, doubt began to overshadow her anger. Naomi, on the other hand, reclined in a relaxed manner in her chair. She crossed one leg over the other, her face impassive but authoritative. She didn't have to speak loudly. She didn't have to struggle. Her silence was enough. Lauren tried to regain control, but the balance had shifted, no matter what she said, no matter how loudly she postured. The weight of her actions pressed harder with every passing second. Naomi's earlier words echoed in her mind. "You're making a mistake." Unbeknownst to Lauren, Naomi had already taken her first step. That quiet moment after the slap, what seemed like restraint, wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Trouble was simmering, and Lauren was set to learn the true cost of her error. What does Naomi need to do next? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you are hooked on this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. The tension thickened as Lauren paced near Naomi's seat, her frustration bubbling over. But Naomi remained perfectly calm, her composure like a wall Lauren couldn't break. Then, with deliberate slowness, Naomi reached for her phone. She tapped something quickly, set it on the armrest, and leaned back. The gesture was simple, but it carried an unspoken power that made Lauren's eyes flick nervously toward the device. "Please tell me what you think you are doing," Lauren snapped, her voice cutting. Lauren stiffened, her face going pale. The understanding broke over her like a wave. This was no accident. Naomi Williams wasn't simply another passenger. She was the one behind it. Lauren's lips trembled, her voice a barely audible whisper. I didn't." But the two assistants paid her no attention, their eyes on Naomi. "Do you require anything prior to continuing, Miss Williams?" One of them inquired politely. Naomi stood up slowly, each movement calculated, her demeanor exuding an air of authority. She straightened her blazer with measured precision, her very presence ordering utter silence within the cabin. When she finally spoke, her voice carried with it the weight of power. "I'm Naomi Williams," she declared, her gaze sweeping across the stunned passengers. "I am the owner of this aircraft, and the owner of this entire airline." Gasps echoed like aftershocks. Lauren's mouth opened, then closed again. The once condescending flight attendant was now reduced to a trembling shadow of herself, panic etching every line of her face. Naomi turned to her, her tone smooth but cutting as steel. "Lauren, your actions today were nothing short of shameful. You embarrassed yourself, disrespected a passenger, and discredited this airline's name." I didn't know," Lauren stammered, her voice shaking. Naomi raised her hand, cutting her off. "You didn't see because you never bothered to look beyond your own bias," she declared sternly. "Rather than treating every passenger with respect, you judged, you assumed, you escalated. That was your decision, and so are the repercussions." A wave of approval coursed through the cabin. Some of the passengers nodded, others murmured encouragement. Phones surreptitiously raised, a moment caught on camera. Even Mr. Raymond laid aside his folded newspaper and bestowed a small, approving nod on Naomi. Naomi stepped forward, her eyes unwavering. "Meanwhile, you were judging me," she went on. "You forgot your sole duty, to treat every rider with respect. No regard for how they look, no matter what you think, and today you failed." Lauren glanced wildly around, frantically looking to be defended by someone. But the passenger's silence was thicker than any rebuke. Naomi addressed the pilot. "I want it taken care of right now," she instructed, her voice firm. "And I want steps taken so this never occurs again." The pilot nodded firmly. "I understand, Miss Williams." Lauren's breathing grew labored. Her fists flexed at her sides as fear threatened to engulf her. She backed away, sliding toward the door. But before she could escape, the pilot blocked her way directly in front of her. "You are not leaving here," he declared. Naomi's eyes found Lauren. Her voice was steady, but it came down like a verdict. "Your conduct today has shown you to be unworthy of this role as of now. You are dismissed." The words clang like the blow of a gavel. Lauren's face disintegrated. Her previous haughtiness fell away, replaced by desperation. "Please, Miss Williams," she gasped rawly. "I didn't mean." Naomi's face hardened, her eyes chill. "You didn't want to get caught up," she snapped. "But you did, and now you will pay the price." Two uniformed police officers stepped onto the plane, their boots thudding onto the floor with quiet force. The people gasped, whispering nervously. "Miss Williams," one of the officers said respectfully. "We got your report. Do you want to pursue charges?" Naomi didn't blink. Her voice remained steady. "Yes. She attacked me in front of several witnesses. I hope she is held responsible." Lauren backed away, looking pale. "Wait, this is a misunderstanding," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. "I didn't intend to." The officer advanced, cuffing her. "Ma'am, you are under arrest for assault. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The metallic ring of cuffs sounded in the cabin. Lauren's breathing grew harsh as the truth hit home. There was no way out. Her crazy eyes darted one final time at Naomi. But Naomi remained steady, her presence serene, her rule unbreakable. Lauren had forfeited everything, and Naomi had never had to lift her voice to conquer. Lauren couldn't escape the reality closing in around her. This was only the beginning of her downfall. Passengers sat frozen, their eyes wide as they watched the proud flight attendant now reduced to tears. Her hands were cuffed tightly behind her back, her pleas echoing through the silent cabin. "Please, Miss Williams, I'm sorry," she sobbed, her voice breaking. Naomi's expression didn't waver. Her calm voice cut through the air with precision. "An apology without a sense of accountability means nothing. You had your choices, Lauren. Now you have to pay the price." The other passengers shared uncomfortable glances as Lauren was led down the aisle. The one-time condescending woman who had dominated the cabin with animosity was now a vanquished woman, her haughtiness gone and substituted by embarrassment. Turning again to the stunned passengers, Naomi straightened her blazer and addressed them with composure. "To all of you out here, I want to personally apologize for what you had to endure today. This is not the quality of service I demand on my aircraft. From today on, I will personally ensure each and every one of you is treated with the respect and dignity you deserve." Her words were met with thunderous applause. Some clapped enthusiastically, others politely but with heartfelt agreement. Even Mr. Raymond, who had remained reserved throughout, gave a cheer, while his wife set aside her knitting to clap gracefully. Naomi's gaze shifted toward Grace, the young attendant who had quietly chosen professionalism when others hadn't. Her tone softened. "Grace, I saw the way you handled yourself today. Thanks for picking up when it counted. My office will be in touch about a much-deserved promotion." Grace's eyes widened, tears of thanks welling as she nodded hastily. "Thank you, Miss Williams. Really." Naomi offered her a warm smile before heading toward the exit, her assistants trailing beside her. The cabin's energy had transformed where tension and hostility once lingered. There was now relief, respect, and admiration. The nosy woman, unable to contain her awe, blurted out, "Miss Williams, you're incredible!" Naomi gave her a gentle smile. "Thank you. Remember this, standing up for what's right is always worth it." With that, Naomi descended the steps into the fresh air of the tarmac. A sleek black SUV waited, its driver holding the door open. Her assistants briefed her on her next meeting, but Naomi's thoughts lingered on what had just unfolded. Weeks later, in a televised interview, Naomi sat elegantly in a modern studio. Her demeanor was calm yet commanding, every word measured with purpose. "Miss Williams, your story went viral," the interviewer informed her. "Millions have watched how you behaved in that moment. What do you want to tell the world?" Naomi's eyes never left his, her voice firm and unequivocal. "Respect is not a privilege, it is a right. Every human being deserves dignity, no matter how they look, where they are from, or what people may think about them. Real leadership is standing for that principle without apology. The interviewer leaned in, clearly overcome. And what do you say to the others who are struggling with the same issue but do not have your platform? Naomi's face went soft. I'd say to them this: strength is an inside job. Even when you're feeling invisible, your value does not change. You don't require wealth or title to command respect. You only need the nerve to stand up for who you are. A few weeks down the line, Naomi flew again. The cabin attendants greeted her this time with courtesy and warm smiles. "Welcome aboard, Miss Williams," the senior attendant said, genuinely. "It's a privilege to have you." Naomi smiled back as she took her seat. The service was impeccable, the ambiance professional but warm. More significant than the service, though, was the sense of respect in every encounter. As she sat staring out the window, seeing the runway dissolve into the horizon, a profound feeling of calm enveloped her. What had happened on that fateful day hadn't only altered her life, it had altered every person who had been there to see it. And the message would resonate far beyond that one flight. Each person who had witnessed what had transpired on that flight took the memory with them. But Naomi knew there was a deeper truth, that this was not even about one injustice. It was about taking a painful experience and making it a lesson that would spread far beyond the confines of that one airplane. As the cabin returned to peace again, Naomi discreetly reached for her phone. She understood this wasn't her tale alone. It was about erasing a system that had consistently permitted prejudice, arrogance, and presumption to run rampant unchecked. The plane flew higher, breaking through the clouds. From her window seat, Naomi looked out into the seemingly endless horizon, where the sky yawned in a sea of silver and blue. A still peace enveloped her. For the first time that day, she breathed deeply. This win wasn't about power. It wasn't even about punishment. It was about turning humiliation into something beautiful, an unwavering reminder that respect and dignity are never up for negotiations. Her reflection glimmered faintly against the glass. Naomi smiled gently, aware that this was just the start. With every decision she made, every policy she crafted, and every example she established, she was creating a future where kindness and respect weren't precious exceptions. They were the norm. The jet plowed on in its relentless ascent, engines thrumming like a hymn of advancement. And Naomi, sitting at the heart of her sight, experienced a still satisfaction that no turbulence could ever dislodge. Soon enough, Naomi issued a public statement that would resonate beyond the realms of the aviation world. In an emotional video that went viral on the internet, she addressed the world directly. "Luxury is not about appearances," she started off. "It's about the experience that we build for all of our people. Success is not about how wealthy you are, what titles you hold, or what privileges you enjoy. It's about how you treat others. That's why I am making new policies in my airline so that every passenger, whoever they may be, is seen, valued, and respected." Her words lit a spark. Within hours, hashtags like #RespectAboveAll and #Naomi's Vision trended worldwide. People applauded her courage, her leadership, and most of all, her commitment to real change. Conversations flourished online as individuals reflected on their own behavior, biases, and the way they treated others. Naomi's actions had started as a defense against injustice, but now they had grown into something far greater, an awakening.